I won't celebrate Insulate Britain's suspension of their campaign of eco-terrorism for the next 11 days. These dangerous criminals have been forced to throw in the towel, for now at least, after suffering abject humiliation as a result of the rotten core of their campaign, which is plagued with hypocrisy. While most of the broadcast media pander to these lunatics, I've been exposing what they're really about. While our next king unbelievably says he has sympathy with their cause, the British public know this smelly mob are nothing but professional agitators. Today's preposterous open letter came just hours after my interview on this very sofa last night with the organisation's spokeswoman, Wootton, who reluctantly admitted she had no idea that her own home had a D rating for energy efficiency, despite demanding the government pay to insulate all social housing by 2025. I wouldn't ask all of Brits to do something that I wasn't prepared to do myself. And I certainly wouldn't go and sit in the middle of the road, stop ambulances going through, cause car accidents, cause misery for the British people without following through myself. It would be something
else. It would be the plastic on my shoes, the polyester in my dress. It would be something else.
No, because
you're... To make me different to other people.
You're specifically campaigning to insulate the houses of Britain.
Yes, OK, but again, even it... So,
and you don't even know if the property that you're living in is insulated?
I'm pretty sure it is.
But you don't know?
I don't know. No, I don't know.
OK. Now, Gabby seemed like a very nice woman, but she is delusional and completely out of touch with the reality of how the UK government has already committed to do far more to combat climate change than virtually every other country in the Western world. Her humiliation followed that of the group's ringleader, Liam Norton, also here on Tonight Live. No, why don't you want me to raise this? Because you don't want me to raise this because you're embarrassed about it.
No, I'm not embarrassed.
You are, because you live in quite a posh, nice house in southwest London, and according to the Sun, Liam, it's single glazed, has no cavity wall insulation, and uses gas central heating. So you're not practising what you preach at all, are you? Why have you not spent the money to insulate your home?
Dan, this is kind of like really. You could do better than this, mate.
Just answer the question,
Dan.
Liam.
You know me.
Answer the question.
You know that you could do better than this, mate. Right? So. And the thing is like you.
If I was turning the country upside down for a particular cause, I would make damn sure that the cause that I was propagating was something that I would follow.
Dan, you're struggling to.
Yeah, because I'm embarrassed for you, Liam. Because you're
embarrassed for me. Come on, mate. Look, you need to do a bit more investigation into that home because it's a social housing home, so it isn't posh, is it?
Why are you waiting for the government to pay to do this? Why don't you pay for it yourself? You're a well-off bloke.
Insulate Britain is about truth, looking at the reality, Dan, right? We need to look at the reality, and the reality is, even if I could...
your house not insulated?
Dan...
Just answer the question.
Dan, if I could insulate that house, that isn't the point here. There are millions of people that aren't going to, and that's the truth.
Insulate Britain aren't about the truth. They're charlatans. And if they were Muslim extremists or anti-vaxxers, they would already be locked up. Today, rather than admitting complete defeat, they published a nonsensical letter making further demands of the Prime Minister. They said ahead of COP26, Insulate Britain will suspend its campaign of civil resistance until Monday the 20th of October. We invite you to make a meaningful statement that we can trust, a statement that the country wants to hear, that your government will live up to its responsibilities to protect us, to defend law and order, that your government will take the lead needed to insulate and retrofit our homes, that it will get on with the job so families can feed their children and keep their homes warm. You couldn't make it up. Could they be any more tone deaf? The suspension is too little too late for the woman whose stroke could not be treated as a result of being stuck on the way to hospital, or those injured by the serious car crash which police believe may have been caused by their criminal activity. Plus, as the Transport Secretary Grant Shapps responded, it's meaningless if this is all going to begin again in 11 days. He tweeted, sitting on roads and preventing everyone else from going about their lawful business is downright dangerous and counterproductive. Rather than apologising to the motorists now and returning in a week and a half, they must call off their reckless campaign forever. I agree. But Mr. Shapps, it's your responsibility to lock these people up before they cause deaths. Big tech censorship is one of the next battlegrounds facing the Western world. Their decision in the early days of COVID-19 to ban posts questioning whether the coronavirus was leaked from a Wuhan lab caused incalculable damage and implicated the media in one of the biggest cover-ups of all time by the Chinese Communist government. Now censorship is impacting British politicians. Google-owned video-sharing giant YouTube removed a speech by the experienced Tory MP and former Cabinet Minister David Davis speaking out against vaccine passports. I've watched the full speech. It was a very good one, delivered during the Conservative Party conference and uploaded to the website by the civil liberties group Big Brother Watch. Now, YouTube say they removed it for medical misinformation, but they wouldn't say what for specifically. In the past few hours, they've actually reinstated it, but only after a media outcry. So here's a look at what David Davis had to say that YouTube thought you shouldn't be allowed to see at all.
Now, there's no greater current example of this disregard for our freedom than vaccination certificates. Or domestic vaccine passports. Now, let me say up front, I'm a strong believer in vaccination. I and all my family are scientists. Odd family I have. My wife and my children are all scientists. And we're all vaccinated. We're all double vaccinated. But we made that decision for ourselves. We made it on the basis of the facts available. This vaccine certificate policy doesn't just smack of a Liberal government. It's actually indicative, in this case, of incompetent government.
No, in a letter to Big Brother Watch, YouTube said YouTube doesn't allow claims about COVID-19 vaccinations that contradict expert consensus from local health authorities or the World Health Organization. Firstly, there's nothing that Mr. Davis said that even comes close to constituting medical misinformation. Secondly, why the hell is it YouTube's position to censor an elected British politician? Because they dare to speak against the COVID orthodoxy of the World Health Organization. The same World Health Organization, by the way, that failed in the early days of the pandemic and has been forced to change its advice time and again. David Davis, who will be here later in the show, slammed YouTube's claims about his speech, saying they are potentially libelous. And he added, this is an outrageous attack on free speech. Throughout the pandemic, we have seen blatant attempts by big tech to silence opposition voices challenging the conventional wisdom. This episode serves as a further example of the worrying trend of strangling free speech. Big tech companies in San Francisco should not be attempting to censor British politicians or journalists or broadcasters. This is an outrage. Well done to the Health Secretary Sajid Javid for finally insisting GPs start to see patients face-to-face again, and by promising to name and shame those practices who refuse. But it's a shame that it took a brilliant campaign by the Daily Mail newspaper to force the government into action. Now look, I'm a supporter of Prince William. The second in line to the throne has hardly put a foot wrong in recent years, and his family is the British monarchy's best hope. That's why I'm worried it seems he's following in his father's footsteps by wading into the thorny political issue of space tourism in a new interview with the BBC.
Are seeing a rise in climate anxiety. You know, young people now are growing up where their futures are basically being threatened the whole time. It's very unnerving and it's very, anxiety making. Now I've got children as well, and speaking to other parents, it's a bit of a cliche, but you do start to see the world differently. And I want the things that I've enjoyed, the outdoor life and the sort of nature and the environment, I want that to still be there for not just my children, but everyone else's children. And if we're not careful, we're robbing from our children's future, what we do now.
Now, Will should know from his father that it's best to leave the politics to politicians and follow the example of his grandmother when it comes to finding out the best way to make a difference while keeping studiously out of politics. Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.